Welcome to Starbound Valor HFY. Subscribe now and dive into daily epic sci-fi adventures where humanity always rises. The galaxy was burning, and everyone knew it, though few wanted to say it out loud. Star systems that once shined with trade and life were now dark, silent, and broken. Entire fleets had vanished without leaving debris, and worlds that had stood for thousands of years were erased in hours. The enemy did not speak, did not warn, and did not stop. They moved like a shadow across space, crushing every defense placed before them. The strongest alien empires had fallen first, their pride becoming their grave. Now only a weak alliance remained, hiding behind broken lines and fading hope. In a deep chamber beneath the capital world of the Alliance, leaders from many species gathered around a dim holographic map. Red marks covered most of the galaxy, spreading closer each cycle. No one spoke at first. Fear filled the room, heavy and quiet. These beings had ruled stars, commanded armies, and written history, yet now they looked small. One leader finally broke the silence and said the truth that haunted them all: they were losing. Every plan had failed. Every weapon had been useless. The enemy learned faster than any mind could track, adapting to attacks before they landed. Shields meant nothing. Numbers meant nothing. Courage meant nothing. The Alliance had reached the end of known options. That was when the forbidden idea returned, the one they had mocked in earlier councils. A young species, quiet and distant, living on the edge of mapped space. Humans. The name alone caused uneasy sounds around the chamber. Humans were not weak, but they were not powerful either, at least not on record. They had no great empire, no ancient fleets, no legendary weapons. They fought among themselves often but rarely against others. They avoided galactic politics and refused to join alliances. To many, they were strange, emotional, and unpredictable. To most, they were irrelevant. Asking them for help felt like admitting complete failure. Several leaders argued against it, saying humans would slow them down or panic or demand control. Others said humans would never answer, and even if they did, they would arrive too late. But the red marks on the map kept spreading, and another system vanished while they debated. Time was gone. Pride was gone. Only survival remained. At last, the highest commander of the Alliance gave the order. A message would be sent to Earth. Not a demand. Not a command. A request. A plea. The words were chosen carefully, stripped of threats and politics. The message explained the war, the enemy, and the coming end. It admitted weakness. It asked for help. When the transmission was sent, the chamber felt colder. No one celebrated. No one hoped too loudly. They had thrown their final chance into the dark. Hours passed. Then days. No reply came. The enemy continued its advance, smashing defenses closer to the Alliance capital. Many leaders took the silence as proof of their mistake. Some said humans were afraid. Others said humans were already dead. The council prepared evacuation plans that everyone knew would fail. Then, without warning, a single signal appeared on the edge of Alliance space. It did not match any known ship code. It did not respond to standard hails. It simply existed, calm and steady, like it had always been there. Scanners showed one small vessel, alone. Laughter spread through the chamber, sharp and broken. This was humanity's answer? One ship against an endless enemy? Before anyone could speak, a second signal appeared, then a third, then hundreds. Space seemed to open itself, and shapes began to emerge, massive and silent. These ships were nothing like the human designs in the records. They were larger, darker, and carried structures that made scanners fail and sensors return errors. The fleet did not rush forward. It formed perfect lines, disciplined and patient. Fear returned to the chamber, but it was different now. This was not fear of death, but fear of the unknown. A transmission finally came through, simple and clear, spoken in calm basic language. A human voice identified the fleet and acknowledged the request for help. There was no boasting, no questions, no demands. The commander said humanity had heard the call. He said humanity remembered old debts. He said humanity would handle the enemy. Someone in the chamber asked how many ships humans had brought. The human paused, then answered that this was only the response fleet. The main force was still on the way. Silence filled the chamber again, but this time it was filled with shock. The enemy fleet appeared moments later on the edge of the system, vast and deadly, unaware or uncaring of the new arrivals. Human ships did not move. They waited. The human commander asked for enemy location data, voice steady, almost bored. As the information transferred, the alien leaders realized something terrifying and wonderful at the same time. Humans were not rushing because they were not afraid. They were not afraid because they had done this before. Far beyond Alliance space, far beyond recorded history, humanity had fought wars no one else had seen. The enemy had not awakened a sleeping ally. They had awakened something else entirely. As the human fleet powered up systems that glowed with unknown energy, one thought spread through every mind in the chamber. When aliens asked humans for help, they did not bring hope. They brought the end of a war, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The Alien Alliance watched the human fleet in silence as it held position near the edge of the system. The ships did not move like normal fleets. There was no noise, no bright engine flares, no signs of tension. They floated in space with quiet control, as if distance and gravity did not matter to them. Alliance scanners tried again and again to read their power levels, weapons, and shields, but the results were always the same. Errors. Unknown values. Missing data. Some systems shut down completely when aimed at the human ships, as if they were being politely but firmly refused. The leaders exchanged uneasy looks. These humans were not what the records had shown. The old reports described human technology as average, sometimes crude, often inefficient. But what stood before them now felt advanced in a way that did not try to impress. It simply existed. The Alliance commander requested a private channel with the human fleet. The response came instantly. The same calm human voice returned, asking how it could assist. There was no fear in the tone, no anger, no excitement. Just focus. The commander asked why humanity had taken so long to reply. The human answered honestly. He said the message had been reviewed by many human councils, and not all of them agreed. Humanity did not rush into wars anymore. They had learned that lesson the hard way. The word anymore did not go unnoticed. The commander then asked the question many had feared to ask. Why help now? The human paused again, then said humans remembered who asked for help and who did not, and the Alliance had once chosen mercy over destruction in a forgotten border conflict long ago. Humanity had not forgotten. That answer caused deep unease. It meant humans remembered history others had erased. While the leaders spoke, younger officers studied the fleet more closely. They noticed marks on the hulls of the ships, symbols etched deep into the metal. These were not decoration. They were records. Each mark represented a battle, a loss, a victory. This fleet carried history on its skin. One officer quietly said that these ships looked old, but not damaged, as if they had survived things meant to destroy them. The enemy fleet moved closer, spreading like a dark tide across the stars. They ignored Alliance defenses and focused on human ships instead. For the first time, the enemy slowed. It was as if they sensed something wrong. Human ships remained still. No weapons powered up. No shields flared. The Alliance waited for orders, but none came. Fear returned, sharp and cold. Had humans misjudged the enemy? Had they come too late? Then the human commander spoke again and asked for full access to Alliance war data. Battle records, enemy behavior, lost fleets, everything. The Alliance shared it all without hesitation. As the data transferred, human ships began to change. Panels shifted. Structures unfolded. Energy flowed through the fleet in patterns that were calm but massive. The humans were not preparing in panic. They were studying, learning, understanding. The enemy launched the first attack, sending a wave of weapons toward the human line. The Alliance braced for impact. The weapons never reached their targets. Space itself seemed to bend, and the attacks vanished as if swallowed by nothing. No explosions. No shields. Just absence. The enemy paused, confused for the first time since the war began. The human commander calmly noted that the enemy used predictable logic. He said that was good news. The Alliance did not understand, but hope began to grow. The commander explained that humanity had once faced an enemy like this, one that believed strength was found only in destruction. Humanity had survived by learning patience. The enemy adjusted and attacked again, this time from multiple angles. Human ships moved at last, but not forward. They shifted positions in ways that broke enemy targeting, always staying just out of reach. It was not a battle. It was a lesson. The Alliance realized that humans were not reacting. They were controlling the flow of the fight. One alien leader asked how long humans had prepared for something like this. The answer came quietly. Humanity had been preparing since the day they learned they were not alone in the universe. They had known that someday, something would come that could not be reasoned with. That day had arrived. The enemy pulled back, regrouping beyond sensor range. The Alliance celebrated softly, but the human fleet did not change its posture. The commander warned that this was not a retreat. It was observation. The enemy was learning, just as humans had. A young alien officer asked if humans could truly win. The human did not answer directly. He said humanity did not plan to win battles. They planned to end wars. As the human fleet powered down visible systems and waited in silence, the Alliance understood a terrifying truth. Humans were not here to defend one system or one species. They were here to rewrite the rules of the war. And the enemy had just realized they were no longer hunting prey. They had met a force that had been waiting for them. The enemy fleet returned sooner than expected, emerging from folded space with numbers greater than before. They came with new formations and weapons, clearly adjusted from their last failure. The alien alliance felt the familiar grip of fear, but the human fleet did not react with urgency. Their ships held position, silent and steady, as if the approaching force was expected. The human commander observed the enemy movement and confirmed what he already knew. The enemy had learned, but not enough. Alliance sensors struggled to track both fleets at once, overwhelmed by energy readings that rose and fell without clear pattern. The human ships began to activate deeper systems, layers of power that had remained hidden. Space around them shimmered faintly, bending in ways that made distance hard to measure. The enemy fired first again, launching weapons designed to tear apart reality itself. Entire regions of space collapsed inward, crushing everything caught within. Human ships did not evade. They simply were not there when the attack landed. To the Alliance's shock, the human fleet had shifted slightly out of normal space, existing in a thin layer between moments. The enemy weapons passed through empty coordinates, destroying nothing. Confusion rippled through the enemy formation, breaking their perfect lines. The human commander gave his first clear order of the battle. A single ship moved forward. It was not the largest, but it carried markings deeper and older than the rest. Alliance scanners failed as soon as they focused on it. The ship powered a weapon that did not glow or shake space. It only created silence. A focused line formed ahead of the ship, and where it touched the enemy, vessels vanished without trace. Not destroyed. Not broken. Removed. Panic spread through the enemy fleet. They scattered, firing wildly, but every shot missed as human ships flowed around the attacks with perfect timing. The Alliance realized this was not chance. Humans were predicting the enemy before they acted. Data streams flooded Alliance systems as human ships shared targeting solutions and movement patterns. The enemy had always seemed unknowable, but humans saw structure where others saw chaos. The commander explained calmly that the enemy followed rules they did not admit, and rules could be broken. More human ships joined the attack, each using different methods. Some bent gravity until enemy hulls crushed inward. Others drained energy until ships went dark and lifeless. There were no screams, no explosions, only quiet endings. The Alliance watched in stunned silence as the enemy lost hundreds of ships in moments. Still, the humans did not push forward recklessly. They maintained formation, protecting Alliance space while thinning the enemy numbers with careful strikes. The enemy adapted again, merging ships into massive warforms and reinforcing shields beyond previous limits. The Alliance feared this change, recognizing the signs of desperation. The human commander acknowledged the shift and approved a new phase. He warned the Alliance to pull back all remaining fleets and stations to a safe distance. His tone remained calm, but there was weight behind the words. Humanity was about to escalate. The human fleet spread wider, creating a vast net of controlled space. Energy readings spiked beyond anything Alliance instruments could measure. One alien leader asked if this level of force was necessary. The human answered simply that it was safer to end this quickly. He said prolonged wars only create monsters. The enemy launched a massive charge, all remaining ships rushing toward the human line at once. It was an act of rage, not strategy. Human ships responded by activating a coordinated field that locked the enemy in place. Space itself hardened, freezing movement and trapping the fleet like insects in amber. Time seemed to slow. The human commander gave a final order. The field collapsed inward, compressing the trapped space until the enemy ships ceased to exist. When it was over, a vast region of space was empty and silent. The Alliance could barely understand what they had witnessed. Entire enemy formations had been erased without a traditional battle. The human fleet returned to a holding pattern as if nothing had happened. The commander reported that this was only a test engagement. The main enemy force still existed, deeper in hostile space. The Alliance felt both relief and fear. If this was only a test, what did humanity consider a real war? As debris cleared and sensors stabilized, new data appeared. The enemy had changed tactics across the front, pulling back from multiple systems at once. They were afraid. For the first time in the war, the enemy was reacting to someone else's moves. The human commander observed the changes and confirmed what he had hoped. The enemy understood now. They had awakened a species that did not fight for survival alone. Humanity fought to prevent future wars. As the human fleet prepared to move deeper into enemy territory, the Alliance realized the meaning of the symbols on the human ships. These were not marks of pride. They were reminders. Humanity remembered every war so they would never need to fight the same one twice. The battlefield remained silent after the enemy's retreat, but the human fleet did not relax. Ships adjusted their positions with slow, precise movement, forming layers of defense and control across the system. The Alien Alliance began recovery operations, rescuing damaged stations and pulling back scattered fleets. For the first time in many cycles, there was no immediate threat. Yet the human commander warned that silence from the enemy was more dangerous than open attack. He explained that the enemy never accepted defeat easily. They studied losses, measured fear, and searched for weaknesses. Humanity had seen this behavior before. While Alliance leaders focused on rebuilding, the humans focused on watching. Deep-range sensors spread far beyond normal limits, reaching into regions of space no one had ever mapped. Human ships acted as one mind, sharing data without delay. Patterns began to emerge. The enemy was not fleeing randomly. They were preparing something new. A cluster of enemy signals appeared far beyond the front line, growing in size and intensity. The Alliance could barely detect it, but human instruments showed clear structure. The commander informed the Council that the enemy was gathering power for a strike meant to break human control in a single blow. The Alliance asked if defenses could hold. The human answered that holding was not the goal. Humanity did not intend to wait. Permission was requested to move the battle forward. The Alliance hesitated. They had never pushed this deep before. But fear of another surprise attack outweighed caution. Approval was given. The human fleet began its advance into enemy-controlled space. The movement was smooth and silent, as if the ships were gliding along invisible paths already prepared for them. As they crossed the boundary, Alliance sensors lost clarity, but human feeds remained stable. The commander explained that enemy space was built on unstable physics, dangerous for most species, but humans had learned to survive there. The first enemy defense line appeared, a massive barrier of energy and weapon platforms designed to shred anything that approached. The Alliance expected the humans to slow or find a way around. Instead, the fleet continued forward. As the barrier activated, human ships adjusted frequency and phase, passing through the deadly field as if it were mist. Enemy platforms fired wildly, unable to lock targets. One by one, the platforms failed, systems overloaded by feedback they could not control. The Alliance watched in disbelief. This was not brute force. It was understanding. The enemy reacted by releasing autonomous war units, fast and aggressive, programmed to overwhelm through numbers. Hundreds became thousands. They swarmed the human fleet from every direction. The commander ordered limited engagement. Human ships did not destroy the units immediately. They redirected them, forcing collisions, draining power, and turning the swarm against itself. Within minutes, the war units collapsed into drifting wreckage. The enemy response escalated. A massive structure emerged ahead, larger than any ship, feeding on energy from surrounding space. Human analysis confirmed it as a command node, controlling multiple enemy fleets at once. Destroying it would blind the enemy across the region. The Alliance feared retaliation on a massive scale. The human commander acknowledged the risk but moved forward. A group of human ships separated from the main fleet, forming a spearhead. They approached the structure slowly, ignoring incoming fire. The closer they came, the more unstable the enemy weapons became, failing under their own output. The spearhead activated a focused field that isolated the command node from the rest of space. Cut off and exposed, the structure attempted to self-destruct. The humans anticipated this. They contained the explosion, folding it inward until nothing remained. The command node was gone. Across enemy space, signals dropped. Fleets lost coordination. Defense lines failed. The enemy's advantage vanished in a moment. The Alliance felt hope surge, but the human commander did not celebrate. He warned that the enemy still had one option left. As if in response, space trembled. A massive energy surge appeared deep within enemy territory, far greater than anything seen before. The enemy had activated a final weapon, one designed to erase entire star systems at once. Its target was not the human fleet. It was the Alliance capital. The Alliance panicked, realizing their home was moments from destruction. Human ships reacted instantly. The fleet split, some turning toward the superweapon, others forming a defensive screen. The commander issued rapid orders, his calm voice never rising. Human ships pushed engines beyond safe limits, tearing across space in a way that defied known travel methods. As they raced to intercept, the commander explained that this weapon was ancient, built in fear long ago. Humanity had encountered similar devices in distant wars. They had survived them. The human strike group reached the superweapon moments before it fired. Enemy defenses were strong, but disorganized. Humans moved through them with practiced ease. A single ship reached the core and deployed a containment field. The weapon began to collapse inward, consuming itself. A blinding flash followed, then darkness. When sensors returned, the superweapon was gone. The Alliance capital was safe. Across the front, enemy forces fell into chaos. The human commander addressed the council once more. He said the enemy had crossed a line. This war would no longer be limited. Humanity would now end it. As the fleet regrouped and prepared for the next phase, the Alliance understood the truth. Humanity had not come to defend them. Humanity had come to decide the fate of the galaxy. The destruction of the enemy's superweapon sent a shock through the galaxy, but humanity did not pause to enjoy the moment. The human fleet regrouped with calm speed, forming new formations that reached deeper into enemy space. Alliance leaders expected celebration, but the humans treated the victory as a necessary correction, not an achievement. The commander warned that the enemy would now act with pure desperation. They had lost control, coordination, and their greatest weapon. What remained was rage. Human ships deployed long-range probes and listening arrays, spreading silently through dark regions of space. These devices did not just observe movement. They listened to changes in energy, time, and probability. The Alliance struggled to understand the data, but the humans did not explain everything. They shared only what mattered. The enemy was gathering its remaining strength around its core worlds. This was not a defense. It was preparation for one final stand. The Alliance asked if negotiation was possible now that the enemy was weakened. The human commander answered without hesitation. He said the enemy did not understand peace. They only understood limits, and those limits had not yet been fully shown. Humanity had learned this lesson long ago, at great cost. As the fleet advanced, alien officers noticed a change in the human ships. Older markings glowed faintly, and new symbols appeared beside them. These were not decorations. They were warnings. Humanity was unlocking systems that had been sealed for generations. The commander informed the Alliance that certain safeguards were being removed. These limits existed to protect others, not humanity. The words sent a chill through the Council. If these limits were meant to protect others, what happened when they were gone? The enemy launched scattered attacks, trying to slow the advance. Human ships did not slow. They moved through the attacks, neutralizing threats without breaking formation. Entire enemy squadrons were disabled and left drifting, alive but powerless. The commander explained that destruction was no longer the goal. Control was. Humanity intended to end the enemy's ability to ever wage war again. As they neared the enemy core systems, resistance intensified. Enemy ships fought with reckless fury, ramming human vessels and overloading weapons. Human shields held, adapting in real time. Damage was minimal. For the first time, the Alliance saw human ships take direct hits without response. The humans were enduring the attacks, studying them. They were learning everything the enemy had left to offer. A massive enemy fleet formed around their home system, creating a wall of fire and energy meant to stop the advance. The Alliance feared a long and bloody battle. The human commander ordered a halt and addressed the enemy directly. He transmitted a message in simple, clear language, offering surrender. The enemy responded with silence, then attack. The commander closed the channel and gave the order to proceed. Human ships activated a wide field effect that reached across the entire system. Enemy weapons lost synchronization. Shields failed at random. Communication collapsed. The fleet did not attack all at once. They advanced slowly, disabling ships one by one. The enemy's numbers meant nothing when coordination was gone. As the final defense fell, the Alliance detected massive underground structures beneath the enemy world. These were factories, breeding grounds, and control centers. The commander explained that the enemy was not just a fleet or a species. It was a system built on endless war. Ending the war meant ending the system. The Alliance feared the loss of life. The human assured them that civilians would be spared. Humanity did not kill without purpose. Specialized human ships descended toward the planet, deploying containment fields and precision strikes. Factories shut down. Control centers went dark. The enemy's ability to produce war ended in hours. Across the galaxy, enemy outposts went silent as control signals vanished. The war that had consumed generations was collapsing in real time. As operations continued, an alien historian asked the commander how humanity learned to fight like this. The human answered that humanity had once nearly destroyed itself. They had built weapons without limits and paid the price. Those who survived chose restraint, not weakness. Every system now being used was a reminder of what humans refused to become again. The enemy leadership made one final attempt to escape, launching a hidden fleet toward unknown space. Human probes detected it instantly. The commander ordered pursuit but not destruction. The fleeing ships were captured and contained, their leaders taken alive. The war was effectively over, but the human fleet remained active. The commander explained that ending a war was not the same as securing peace. The galaxy needed to see what happened when limits were crossed. As the Alliance watched the enemy's empire fall without genocide or chaos, they understood the true danger of humanity. It was not their weapons or their fleets. It was their discipline. Humanity did not fight to win. Humanity fought to make sure no one ever needed to fight this war again. The galaxy did not celebrate the collapse of the enemy war machine because the humans did not allow time for it. The human fleet remained spread across key systems, holding control with silent authority. Alliance leaders expected the humans to withdraw now that victory was certain, but the commander made it clear that this phase was not finished. Wars ended in many ways, but peace required proof. The enemy's remaining forces were disorganized, frightened, and dangerous. Humanity would not leave loose ends. Human ships began a coordinated operation across hundreds of systems at once. This was not an invasion. It was a cleansing of weapons, not worlds. Every enemy outpost, shipyard, and hidden base was located using data gathered over the entire war. Human forces arrived without warning, disabling defenses before alarms could spread. The enemy tried to resist in some regions, but resistance collapsed quickly. Human tactics were precise and controlled. No cities were destroyed. No civilian centers were touched. Only war infrastructure vanished. The Alliance watched with awe and confusion. Humanity was dismantling an empire without becoming one. During these operations, the humans revealed a new level of power. Certain enemy strongholds were protected by ancient shields that even Alliance legends claimed were unbreakable. Human ships did not attack these shields directly. They changed the space around them, altering energy flow until the shields could no longer exist. The structures beneath were left exposed and powerless. Alliance scientists struggled to understand how this was possible. The human explanation was simple. All systems depended on rules. Humanity had learned how to rewrite rules temporarily. The commander warned that such methods were never used lightly. Each use carried risk. That was why humans waited until no other choice remained. As the enemy's last military centers fell, reports came in of uprisings within their controlled worlds. Species that had been enslaved or forced into service were breaking free. The Alliance feared chaos, but the humans had prepared for this as well. Human relief fleets followed behind combat ships, delivering supplies, restoring infrastructure, and helping stabilize worlds before violence could spread. This was not charity. It was strategy. Humanity understood that desperation created future enemies. Stability created memory. On the enemy capital world, the captured leadership was brought before a human tribunal. The Alliance expected public punishment or execution. Instead, the proceedings were quiet and controlled. The enemy leaders were shown records of their actions, the worlds they had destroyed, the species they had erased. The humans did not shout or threaten. They let the truth speak. The sentence was not death. It was permanent isolation. The enemy leaders would live, knowing their empire was gone and could never be rebuilt. The Alliance was unsettled by this choice, but the commander explained that death ended responsibility. Living with failure preserved it. Across the galaxy, human ships activated long-term monitoring systems. These were not weapons but watchers, designed to detect early signs of large-scale aggression. Humanity was building a warning network, not an occupation. The commander informed the Alliance that these systems would be shared. The galaxy would never again face such a threat alone. Some Alliance leaders worried that this gave humans too much influence. The commander responded calmly that influence was not control. Humanity did not need to rule to be heard. Their actions had already spoken. As operations continued, alien officers noticed human crews showing signs of fatigue. They had fought without rest, without celebration, driven by purpose rather than glory. When asked why they pushed so hard, one human officer answered that unfinished wars had a way of returning. Humanity preferred to close doors completely. In the final stage of the campaign, a hidden enemy fleet attempted one last strike, aiming at a distant civilian world to send a message of defiance. Human sensors detected the move instantly. The response was swift and overwhelming. The fleet was intercepted and neutralized before it could reach its target. The commander ordered the wreckage preserved as evidence. The message would not be fear. It would be memory. With the last threat removed, the human fleet finally slowed its operations. For the first time since their arrival, ships powered down visible weapons and shifted into passive patterns. The Alliance asked if the war was truly over. The commander answered that the war was finished the moment the enemy lost the ability to choose violence. That moment had passed. Humanity had not just defeated an enemy. They had removed a path. As the galaxy entered an unfamiliar silence, the Alliance realized something profound. Humanity had unleashed its legends not for conquest, not for pride, but for protection. And now that the legends had done their work, they were being locked away again. The enemy was broken, but the human fleet did not stop to claim victory. Ships moved slowly through enemy territory, scanning every system, every planet, every signal. The Alliance expected looting or occupation, but humanity showed no interest in either. Their goal was clear: the enemy had fought without rules, and now they would be shown what order meant. Across the shattered empire, isolated enemy leaders tried to regroup, sending messages to hidden fleets and outposts. Every transmission was intercepted. The humans did not respond with immediate destruction. They studied each message, predicting intent, calculating risk, and neutralizing only what threatened stability. Alliance officers watched in disbelief as entire enemy commands collapsed without a fight. Some fleets tried to flee into unknown space, but human scouts tracked them instantly. They were contained, forced to surrender, and placed under strict monitoring. The commander explained that survival alone was not enough. The enemy had to understand that aggression had consequences. Humanity moved with a discipline that was frightening and precise. Every decision was measured, every strike calculated. Casualties among human crews were minimal, almost non-existent. The Alliance asked how such efficiency was possible. The commander replied simply: humans had learned to expect the unexpected. They had faced enemies beyond reckoning and survived. In every battle, they had studied patterns, weaknesses, and the cost of impatience. The enemy's remaining forces were concentrated in one region, a cluster of core worlds that had never been fully explored. It was heavily fortified, with energy fields, orbital platforms, and automated defense systems designed to annihilate anything approaching. The Alliance feared even approaching. The humans, however, did not hesitate. The fleet advanced as one, each ship knowing its role and position perfectly. The enemy launched a preemptive strike, firing all available weapons at once. Human ships moved in unison, slipping through attacks like water flowing around rocks. Some vessels absorbed strikes to gather data, while others disrupted enemy targeting systems. Within minutes, the offensive stalled. The enemy was trapped not by numbers, but by strategy. The commander explained that destruction was not the point. The humans sought control of conflict, not just physical victory. By disabling enemy coordination, they removed the threat while leaving life intact. The Alliance found this difficult to comprehend. They had always equated victory with destruction, yet humanity's approach was complete in a different way. Civilian worlds were untouched, infrastructure remained intact, and yet the enemy could no longer wage war. A human strike team approached the central planet, the capital of the remaining enemy forces. Massive defensive arrays surrounded the world, but the humans did not rush. They deployed phased fields that neutralized defenses gradually, avoiding catastrophic damage. Inside the enemy capital, leadership attempted last-minute negotiations, sending envoys with promises of surrender. The commander allowed the messages to be received but ignored them. Humanity did not negotiate under threat. They acted with authority born of preparation and inevitability. Outside the planet, human ships moved with synchronized precision, forming a lattice of control that covered the system. The Alliance struggled to understand how this could be achieved without massive casualties. The commander explained that humans worked as one, sharing perception, calculation, and decision across the fleet. Individual ships were not alone. The fleet was a single mind operating with flawless efficiency. As the final enemy fleets were intercepted and disarmed, the commander addressed the captured leadership. They were shown records of atrocities, manipulation, and deception. Unlike traditional justice, there was no spectacle, no vengeance. The humans presented evidence and allowed the enemy to confront reality. Those who had caused suffering were stripped of power and confined under strict supervision. The message was clear: actions had consequences, but death was not the lesson. Life under control, living with the knowledge of failure, was the punishment. The Alliance observed quietly as humans began stabilizing the conquered systems. Relief operations followed closely behind disarmament teams, ensuring that infrastructure, communication, and basic needs were restored. This was not charity. It was order. Humanity understood that survival alone did not prevent future conflict. Systems needed stability, education, and oversight to ensure peace. Alien leaders began to see the pattern. Humans did not destroy. They enforced limits. They removed threats without ruling. Humanity's discipline became a warning across the galaxy. Aggression would no longer be tolerated, but survival could continue if respect was shown. Hidden enemy fleets attempted minor rebellions, trying to strike isolated targets. They were quickly intercepted. Humans contained the threat without unnecessary violence, using precision control to neutralize aggression. The commander explained that leaving enemy forces alive under strict surveillance created memory. Memory prevented repetition. Memory ensured the galaxy would not forget what happened when limits were crossed. By the time operations concluded, the remaining enemy leadership was isolated on a single planet. Human monitors surrounded it, watching for activity without interference in day-to-day life. The Alliance finally understood humanity's ultimate lesson. War could end not with victory alone, but with structure, discipline, and accountability. The galaxy was silent, but it was a silence filled with understanding. Humanity had fought not for glory or conquest. They had fought to ensure that the enemy would never rise again. And now, as human ships held position quietly across the region, the Alliance realized that the galaxy had witnessed something unprecedented. The First War ended not by destruction, but by control, and humanity had written the rules. The enemy's empire was shattered, yet the human fleet remained in place, silent and imposing. Alliance leaders expected withdrawal, but the humans made it clear that their mission was not yet complete. They were not conquerors. They were guardians. Across the former empire, systems were unstable, with populations unsure how to survive without centralized control. Human ships moved through space like shadows, surveying planets, stations, and fleets. Every weapon, every base, every hidden facility was catalogued. The humans did not destroy unless necessary. Where destruction was unavoidable, precision strikes were applied, leaving life and infrastructure intact whenever possible. Alliance observers watched in awe. Humanity had dismantled an empire without leaving chaos in its wake. On the central enemy world, the remaining leaders were gathered under human supervision. They had expected punishment, imprisonment, or even execution. Instead, the humans showed evidence of past crimes and allowed them to witness the consequences of their own actions. There was no shouting, no anger, only quiet, unrelenting authority. The leaders were left with their failure, their power removed, and the knowledge that their empire could never return. The Alliance feared this approach at first, unsure if such restraint would suffice to prevent further conflict. The human commander explained that punishment without understanding created resentment. Memory without consequences created repetition. Humanity had learned from its own history. Across the galaxy, human monitoring systems were deployed in strategic locations. They were not weapons. They were watchers, designed to detect threats before they could arise. Alien leaders worried about control, but the commander clarified that these systems were not meant to rule but to warn. The galaxy would be free to act, but aggression would never go unnoticed. Resistance remained in hidden pockets. Small fleets attempted escape, some trying to rally remaining forces. Human scouts intercepted them instantly. Ships were contained, leaders captured, and systems stabilized. No unnecessary destruction occurred. The humans understood that leaving survivors alive, aware of their failures, was more powerful than annihilation. While the Alliance marveled at the efficiency, human crews worked without pause. Fatigue was evident, yet operations continued with calm precision. They had faced enemies far stronger than those before the Alliance, and each human ship carried the experience of generations. Lessons learned in distant wars were now applied across this galaxy. Civilian populations, once enslaved or subjugated, were liberated. Human relief operations followed immediately, delivering supplies, repairing infrastructure, and teaching local leaders how to manage without oppression. The Alliance realized that these actions were not charity. They were preparation. Humanity did not just win wars. They ensured that the consequences of war would not repeat. Hidden enemy fleets attempted last-ditch attacks on isolated worlds. Human forces intercepted them quickly, neutralizing threats without unnecessary violence. The commander explained that this was intentional. Fear alone did not teach lessons. Discipline did. By allowing survivors to live under careful watch, humanity ensured memory and accountability. Across the galaxy, alien species began to recognize the pattern. Humanity did not destroy for glory, did not conquer for pride. They dismantled threats while preserving life and knowledge. Each liberated system became a node in a network of stability, monitored and protected without interference in daily life. The enemy leadership, isolated on a single planet, understood the new order. Their empire was gone, their fleets destroyed, and their capacity for war erased. Yet they were alive, forced to confront the consequences of their actions daily. The Alliance began to see humanity's ultimate lesson. True power was not in destruction, but in control, restraint, and foresight. Peace was enforced not by fear, but by discipline, memory, and preparation. Human ships held position across the region, silent and patient, as if reminding the galaxy that guardianship required vigilance. No empire, no weapon, no force could rise without consequence. Alien leaders finally understood the depth of humanity's intent. The war had ended, not in flames or victory parades, but in quiet, unshakable order. Humanity had not claimed the galaxy, yet it had reshaped it completely. Every system knew that aggression had limits, and that humans would act if those limits were crossed. The Alliance whispered among themselves, realizing that the humans had given the galaxy a gift it could not fully comprehend. Civilization itself had been spared from repeating the mistakes of endless war. Humanity had not ruled. They had protected, disciplined, and ensured memory. And in that silent strength, the galaxy finally knew that it had witnessed something eternal, a species that fought not for glory, not for empire, but for the right of life to continue in order. The galaxy was quiet now, but it was not peaceful in the way anyone expected. The enemy's empire had fallen, yet human ships remained scattered across the former territories, silent and vigilant. Alliance leaders expected withdrawal, but the humans had no intention of leaving entirely. They had completed their mission, but they were not finished teaching the galaxy the meaning of limits. Every system once ruled by the enemy was surveyed carefully. Human ships passed through space with slow, deliberate motion, checking stability, monitoring resources, and ensuring that no hidden threats remained. Alliance officers marveled at the efficiency. Humanity was not enforcing rule. They were enforcing order. Hidden fleets, secret bases, and rogue commanders were intercepted, contained, and neutralized. No destruction occurred beyond what was necessary. Civilian populations were unharmed, their cities untouched. Relief teams followed behind the fleets, repairing infrastructure, delivering resources, and helping species recover from decades of war. Humans explained that survival alone did not prevent future wars. Stability, memory, and guidance were required. Those who had once been enemies were not executed, nor were they enslaved. They were isolated under supervision, forced to live with the knowledge of their failure. Humanity's method was clear: punishment without death, accountability without vengeance. Alliance leaders were unsettled by this approach. They asked how humans could be trusted to enforce such restraint. The commander answered simply: humans did not enforce for power. They enforced because the galaxy had to survive. Systems were restored not to human control, but to independence under careful monitoring. Human surveillance stations were placed in strategic locations. They were not weapons, only watchers. Alien species questioned whether this was a form of rule. The human commander explained that it was a safeguard, not governance. Those who respected life could live freely, but aggression would not go unnoticed. Across the galaxy, isolated enemy commanders attempted to regroup, sending signals, moving fleets, and trying to see systems left vulnerable. Human scouts detected every movement instantly. Threats were neutralized without unnecessary destruction. Some fleets were captured and monitored, others redirected harmlessly to uninhabited space. Humanity allowed life to continue, but the memory of failure was enforced. Citizens of liberated worlds witnessed the arrival of human ships and saw that war infrastructure was dismantled. No human soldier harmed civilians, yet no enemy weapon remained operational. The Alliance began to understand the scale of humanity's discipline. Every action was calculated to prevent repetition. Every strike and restraint was meant to teach a lesson. The enemy's remaining leadership was brought to a single isolated planet. Here they lived under strict watch, forced to confront their failures and the consequences of their choices. The commander explained that living with memory was a punishment far stronger than death. Across the galaxy, humans monitored signals for hidden aggression. Rogue elements were found and contained before they could act. Alliance fleets operated alongside human ships, learning methods of surveillance, control, and stabilization. The enemy attempted minor rebellions, sending small forces toward vulnerable systems. They were intercepted immediately. Human crews did not attack unnecessarily. They used containment, relocation, and restraint, ensuring that no additional suffering occurred. The Alliance observed quietly, realizing that humanity's method was unprecedented. Power had not been used for conquest, but for enforcement of limits. Systems remained independent, but violence had consequences. Across the liberated regions, alien species began to understand the new reality. Humanity had not sought to rule. They had ensured that no one could challenge peace without consequence. Every captured commander, every neutralized fleet, and every dismantled weapon carried the same message: aggression has limits, and those who cross them will be stopped. The galaxy slowly adjusted to this understanding. Trade resumed, communication lines reopened, and species began to rebuild under the invisible supervision of the human network. The Alliance leaders, once fearful, began to appreciate the discipline behind the calm. Humanity's approach was not brutality, nor was it mercy. It was control. It was foresight. And as human ships continued to patrol the former empire, the commander reminded the Council that vigilance was eternal. The galaxy must remember, or history would repeat itself. For the first time, alien species understood the meaning of restraint enforced with precision. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy, yet it had shaped it irrevocably. They had given the gift of memory, discipline, and survival, showing that true power was not in domination, but in guiding the future without claiming it. The enemy leadership, still alive on their isolated world, understood their fate fully. Their empire was gone, their forces neutralized, and their capacity to wage war destroyed. Yet they lived to witness the consequences of their actions, and in that memory lay the most profound lesson of all. Humanity fought not for empire, not for glory, but to ensure that the galaxy would never again fall to chaos. The war had ended, yet the human fleet remained scattered across the galaxy, a quiet presence in every system once touched by the enemy. Alliance leaders expected departure, but the humans made it clear that their mission had been more than defeating an empire. They were guardians now, watchers of a fragile peace, ensuring that no species could rise unchecked again. Across the former enemy territory, human ships moved with deliberate patience, scanning planets, star systems, and fleets. Every structure, every weapon, every hidden facility was catalogued and neutralized if necessary. Civilian populations were left untouched. Cities, infrastructure, and culture remained intact. Relief teams followed closely behind, repairing, supplying, and educating species on stability, governance, and coexistence. The Alliance observed, astonished, as humanity rebuilt not to rule but to restore. Even the remaining enemy leaders were alive. They were confined to a single isolated world, stripped of power, forced to witness the consequences of their actions. No executions, no vengeance, only memory and accountability. The commander explained that life under responsibility was more powerful than death. Across the galaxy, human monitoring systems were deployed. They were not weapons, only observers, capable of detecting threats before they could arise. Alien species questioned whether this amounted to control. The human response was simple. Survival did not require domination. Respect for limits ensured freedom, but aggression would never go unchallenged. The enemy attempted minor rebellion in hidden sectors. Small fleets tried to escape or regroup. Human scouts detected them instantly. The ships were intercepted, contained, or redirected without unnecessary violence. Life continued, but memory remained. Civilizations once subjugated observed human discipline firsthand. Every dismantled war machine, every captured fleet, and every neutralized commander carried the same message: aggression has consequences, and humanity ensures they are felt. Across the liberated regions, species slowly adjusted to a new order. Trade resumed, communication lines reopened, and systems learned self-governance under quiet supervision. Alliance leaders began to understand the magnitude of humanity's method. Humans had not sought conquest. They had dismantled threats, preserved life, and ensured that the mistakes of the past would not repeat. Discipline, patience, and foresight replaced brute force as the tools of power. The remaining enemy leadership was left to live with the knowledge of their failures. Isolated and powerless, they were forced to witness the stability humanity had restored. Each day reminded them that aggression without restraint had consequences. Human ships remained on patrol, quiet and precise, as a reminder that vigilance was eternal. No system would be left vulnerable, and no enemy underestimated. Children across liberated worlds would learn of the events, of how humanity had arrived when the galaxy needed them most, not to dominate but to protect. Tales of human discipline, precision, and restraint would pass into legend, spreading across generations. The Alliance began recording these events, rewriting histories to reflect not only the destruction of the enemy but the guardianship of humanity. No empire, no weapon, no fleet could rise unchecked again. Humanity had fought not for power, not for glory, but for the survival of life itself. Across the stars, species understood the lesson. True strength is measured not by what you can destroy but by what you can preserve. As the human fleet gradually withdrew from the most critical systems, they left behind networks of observation and protection, invisible yet potent. These were not chains, but reminders. Freedom carried responsibility, and life carried memory. The enemy leadership, isolated and powerless, knew the full weight of this lesson. Their empire was gone, and with it, any hope of repeating history. Across the galaxy, the civilizations once threatened slowly thrived under this quiet order. Humanity had not ruled the stars, but they had shaped them irrevocably. Guardianship had replaced conquest. Discipline had replaced fear. Memory had replaced chaos. And in this, the galaxy understood that a single species had arrived not as conquerors but as protectors, writing a new legend that would endure forever. Humanity had answered the call, not with overwhelming pride or arrogance, but with the certainty of action and the wisdom of experience. They had fought wars they did not need to fight again, and in doing so, had ensured that the galaxy would never again face the darkness it had endured. Their presence lingered not as rulers, but as watchers, and every planet, every fleet, every civilization knew. The legends of humanity were real, and the galaxy would never forget.